Hey everybody, Jim Marouche from the FIsionaries Podcast and a live booth here at the Collab 2025 sponsored by Alchemy. The balance of innovation, reliability, trust, and culture is hard to put in one basket. Mount America Credit Union out of Salt Lake City, Utah does this very well. They have a legacy of an organization that is focused on the member experience and probably, unlike many of the guests we have, more branch-based than digital-based. You'll hear how they are making a digital twin in the marketplace so that that transformation from human to digital, if the member wants it, will be smooth. How they measure that experience and how they deploy against that measurement. Today, we have two gentlemen from Mount America Credit Union in Salt Lake City, Utah, or in the suburbs of Salt Lake City, Utah. James Hilton and Jesse Evenson, from Mount America Credit Union. Can you talk a little bit about your background in banking and what you do at Mount America?
Sure, I joined Mountain America just about 8 years ago now. Prior to that, I was in the HRIS space. I always have been in really product management. Yeah. So software development, I'm building those things. So while joining MACU, it's been building out a little bit of that product management discipline, as well as our digital banking solutions. I work close with our product managers, our UX design team, and of course our business partners to launch our products.
How about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I've been at Mountain America just over 11 years, long time. I've done a variety of different roles. Really enjoyed my time there. It's been great. Working with James has been great. Seen a lot of change, and right now I'm working with our quality engineering teams, our site reliability teams, and just a little bit in the background helping manage the systems and make sure we've got the quality we want.
Well, it's interesting. As you have heard from me, I had a lot of history in Salt Lake City with working with financial institutions in a previous life. And Mount America always stood out as being a very innovative, very product-forward, very data-centric, and very secure organization. You're balancing a lot of things. And it's interesting because it may be the first time we've had the quality aspect of a financial institution, the product aspect on the same podcast. But it's interesting because now more than ever, the importance of trust as part of that whole product element, security, but trust is really going to drive where we can go as financial institutions because, as I said, you're a very data-centric organization, information and insight-centric. You had some of the early partnerships in the diving deeper than normal into the personalization aspects of things. And we only can get it right once. I mean, why do we pay so much for Amazon Prime? Because we trust them. They do a really good job with our data and make our lives easier. But it isn't for the movies, and that's not really anything else. You don't want to break that bond and say, well, I'm going to walk away from Amazon Prime because I may be walking away from something that's making it all work. So I'm going to actually start with you, Jess, from the quality standpoint. And today, more than ever, we're using more and more data, more and more insights to build better product experiences and better engagement. But once you start to get deeper and deeper and build more of an engagement rather than just an experience platform, you run some risks. You also have to make sure that your uptime is on time. And we're seeing more and more that organizations, because of all the partnerships we have across fintechs and other organizations, downtime's a real big deal. And it's something that it doesn't have to be your fault. And your members really aren't going to give a darn whether or not it was yours or not because it's their accounts. So what are you focused on today? What has changed in the last 5 years with regards to how you make things work behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's a great question. You look at, maybe MACU specifically, and I think just credit unions in general have matured quite a bit over the last 5 years. I think we have to be a little bit more careful with the partners we pick, who we're working with. Our members are certainly aware, like you highlighted, that if we've got a problem with the system or a vendor's got a problem with the system, it doesn't matter to them who's got the problem. It's a reflection of MACU and the way we're treating our members. And so picking partners is important. I think observability is big for my team, making sure we can understand and look at that data, see where issues may be coming up, where maybe our response times aren't quite as good, or the downtime is more than we would expect, and really understanding that and be able to work with either our internal teams or our partners on fixing that and making things better.
So sticking with you for a second, with regard to the data, how much are you democratizing, or how much is your goal to democratize insights across the organization so that you can get similar experiences, whether or not if you're calling on the phone, whether if you're online, whether or not you're going in the branch, or whether you're dealing digitally? How do you deal with the democratization across the organization? Because that's something that, I go back eons in banking, and we would always held it right within IT. That's no longer the case in most financial institutions. How are you democratizing data within MACU?
MACU's got a good culture, I think, of sharing and collaborating with each other. Making that data available really to everybody. I think we can all make better decisions when we've got the data, and not being those gatekeepers, but being open and honest, even when maybe it makes our teams look, maybe not in the most positive light, but putting that data out there, understanding it, talking about it, and being able to make decisions on that data across all the teams, right? Because it does affect all the teams, all the experience across, whatever channel our members are using.
And James, from an innovation standpoint, from a product standpoint, as I mentioned, you're an organization that really has been pushing the limits and on a good sense as far as what you're doing from a product standpoint. What have you seen change over the last 5 years since COVID, from the standpoint of the products you're developing, what you're focusing on?
I think, as you mentioned, trust, right? So security, right? There's been a lot of innovation and a lot of things that improve our security. BioCatch is one that we leverage, right? With some behavioral metrics that we can ramp up our security to make trust better, but also reduce the friction from members, members, right? As they're going through our online and mobile and doing their application, right? People want to come in quickly to self-serve, right? We typically have them for about 1 minute, 2 minutes within our application, and so we don't want to get in the way, but we want to have high security as well. So there's and leveraging the data, not only from maybe some of that user location, IP, but also some of the known data of bad actors and different things, and these different security tools and features can really pick that up, run in the background, offer MFA, lock and block accounts, and so I think there's quite a bit of benefit there. With that, it's leveraging data. There's AI tools, right? And as quantum computing picks up, right, the security is going to be more critical and important as we look out 5 years, 6 years, and where passwords become more risky.
So you talk about using data and insight to make it so it's a more seamless, a more frictionless experience. What have you done at MACU that really is customer facing, that the customer can feel? Because so much of what you're doing, any financial institution has to do, is really back office based to make the front office work. What have you done? How's your member base benefited from what the back office has been able to provide you from a product standpoint and delivery?
And it really does. It's interesting because it all starts with our branches, our member services teams, and our focus on our membership. We invest heavily there, and the ability for us to serve our members there is why we are who we are, right? It's why we have the growth that we have. It's why we have the membership that we have. And it's why Jesse and I have jobs, right? Is to and provide the tools to our frontline team members so that they can easily access Knowledge Center, right? So they can do their jobs and understand that, but also understand data, be able to assess the member that's in front of them, and to be able to provide the tools there. So it's really serving up seamless data, seamless tools, and an easy way for the member or for the team member to serve the member, and not let the systems and tools get in the way of and be frustrated with those type of things while they're trying to serve the member that's in front of them. So a lot of good things that way.
So stay with you for one more second. We just had a general session around the new account opening, the onboarding process, the integration of accounts, making it so a customer or a member doesn't have to start from scratch every time, but even when they are meeting you for the first time, that your front door is more open as opposed to simply marketing things that we make very hard for the member to do and do what we want to do. What have you done in that area over the last several years?
That's a great point. We do focus on products per account, right? And it's really is looking at the member's needs, right? We're not trying to push products, try to sell or provide something that the member doesn't need, but is it really going to help them? Is it going to benefit the member? We as a member joins Mountain America, we run at about just over 6 products per new member as they start with us, right? And that's a measurement that we look at, and not necessarily track the amount of products, but are we serving the members that are joining us? Is that
branch-based or is that digital as well?
Digital, we only open about 10% of our account opening is self-service, and we do get less products that way.
Yeah.
And so we're able to better, and that's where Mantle does provide on stage there, something that excited me or looked at there is Alchemy's new partnership with Mantle is the ability, this checklist that they talked about, right? So as a member, it's like opening an account. There can be, people have so many seconds, right, to open the account. And so if you provide a long list of products and different things, they'll probably disappear and never come back. So how do you follow up with those things? How do you, a certificate, for example, with a great rate, how do we get that in front of them in a couple of clicks, be able to open that up? There's some distance for us to go to improve the ease of some of those experiences. Funding accounts when you join, opening a Visa card, opening an auto loan, those type of things. I think it's exciting where Alchemy is going.
As Steve said too, not treating these people like they're criminals for the first 6 months of an account.
Which is hard. That resonates.
I'm sitting there going like, oh my gosh, we do that because it's been a long time since I opened a new account that wasn't with a digital player. But you're right, and as a small business person, oh my God, I think I went back and forth 4 times. Right. They were asking me to actually print out things at home because they didn't have the right within the branch to print. Something was online on their app. So, Jesse, from the standpoint of, you mentioned earlier the importance of selecting providers that can provide the elements that make his products hum. How do you evaluate providers? Because, again, I see MACU is really an organization that has really been. You go out there and you've been finding a lot of great partners over the years, and you've tested a lot of partners over the years. How has that process changed? But how do you evaluate what you're going to do yourself, buy, build, or partner? How do you make those decisions?
That's a good question, and honestly, probably more in James' area as far as buy or build. Looking at those partners, from my perspective, when we're evaluating a partner, I'm looking at it from what kind of support can they provide us. Certainly looking at SLAs and different things, looking at the overall experience. My quality team maybe is going to be looking at, how we can get in and test this and understand the product a little bit better. How do they manage changes on their system? All of these to really minimize our downtime and maximize the experience, right? Looking at just the overall flow of the system and trying to understand that better and kind of gauge how our members are going to experience that system, and is that vendor going to provide those things. Looking at MACU, we've grown a lot. We are continuing to grow and plan to continue to grow, and as we're evaluating these partners, we're also looking at, are they going to be able to grow with MACU over the next 10 years? Can they continue to provide that experience that we expect for our members and that our members expect from us?
Well, it's interesting because we've seen it with people we've interviewed and people I've interviewed on the other podcast, Banking Transform, that I do, is that a lot of clients, a lot of financial institutions today are actually pushing their providers as much as the providers are pushing the financial institutions. So it depends on where you are along the maturity cycle. But when you look at digital maturity, it's great to have partners that you can actually push and have them move. We all have lived in the environment with traditional core providers that, because of your size, you're at a disadvantage because you're not getting a lot of attention. And when it used to be that the core providers did everything for you, it's a matter of where's your balance, what are you focusing on versus what is the core provider focused on. It doesn't matter if they have that solution. Are you 1 generation or 2 generations behind where the marketplace is? How do you evaluate that? How do you determine which elements you bring into your organization, as opposed to sticking with your what I'll call legacy core, which is now a misnomer, but to a degree of looking at how do you balance all these things so that they all work together well, so you don't have the downtime, so you don't have the surprises.
It's challenging. You look at over the years, as kind of as we've grown, our members want more features, more products in the system. And so the systems get more complex. Yeah. And we've got more vendors interacting, more systems involved. We do a lot of internal development as well. And so we've got all of these systems, and it has become more complex. I think one thing that MACU has done well and invested in is making sure that as we've grown, we're investing in our quality teams, making sure that we do have the ability to test and understand how these systems are interacting, making sure that that interaction is working well, that the pieces are moving, that we understand how our production systems are running, and it has been challenging. But like I said, I think MACU's done well in continuing to invest in our quality teams to continue to provide that experience for our members as the complexity has grown.
Yeah. James, you've been with the organization, you've both been with the organization for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
But none of this works unless your leadership builds a culture that allows it to work. And what I mean by that is yes, we can buy the technology, but the technology is not what makes it run. It's the people. Your organization has made a conscious effort to do a lot in the branches still, and having digital support branch, which a lot of organizations have flipped, either for a financial reason or just because they think that's the thing to do. When you look at that culture and who you are, how do you stick to that culture while still keeping that innovative spirit?
That's a really good question. And culture is something that we often talk about, right? When Jesse and I started, we had a 10, 15 person team. Now we're 100 plus person team as we've added. Just as Jesse talked, we've grown with quality engineers, we've grown with engineers, we've grown with product managers, we've grown with the UX team, right? And experienced researchers and SRE, our support teams, from where that was 8 years ago to where our SRE and site reliability is today is significantly better. But that adds talent, right? It adds, and every time you add somebody, you're changing the culture a little bit, right? With every new person. But it's something we've been able to maintain. There's really focus on the member, right? And then in turn translates to focus on team members as well, so that they're serving the members appropriately. And that culture largely hasn't changed. It's still that focus, still that purpose, right? And that translates to the technology teams, to our front member teams, and honestly a ton of passion around that.
I would imagine it's been beneficial that your culture has been this way. You haven't all of a sudden changed it.
Right, no.
You've had that. I mean, again, my history and knowing a little bit about your company is that you're innovative forward, you're progressive, you're touching things that other organizations are only dreaming about in many cases. As far as looking at what you've achieved, let's say since COVID, since 2020, it's an easy date to pick. What are some things that you've done at Mount America that you've been responsible for that you sit back and go, yeah, pretty cool. We're glad we accomplished that.
That's a good question, maybe a tough question to answer. One is probably the evolution of our mobile and online banking, right? One of the first things that we tackled early on was moving from one platform to another. And we did it without a lot of disruption and without a lot of pain to our members, which is a little bit of a trick, right? Moving from one provider to another.
And if the member never knows about it, it's been successful. You said at the very beginning of the podcast, I'm a background person, and you know what? You want to stay in that background because when you're in the foreground, because something went wrong. It's not because they're patting you on the back a lot of times.
And we've gone through different evolutions of that, getting from one platform to another, like feature focused. How many features can we get in our application so members can self-serve and manage their finances, to quality, to performance. And then this next evolution, as Alex talked about on stage, is this personalization, right? This anticipatory banking where we can not cause friction, right, which is the trick, but provide solutions and anticipate things that the members can click a button and take advantage of a new Visa card, a
Anticipatory
new rate, waive a fee. Right, but I think the proudest, I think, is the team that we've built. Honestly, I think in a credit union, I think in our space, I think we've hired a lot of great talent. We've been able to attract a lot of great talent. You mentioned Silicon Valley and in Utah. We do have a lot of talent, but there's a lot of startups. There's a lot of sexy organizations. There's a lot of competition, and we've been able to really attract and retain because of that culture you talked about, and some great people that help build this consistent innovations, help us push some of our partners as well, as you mentioned, and so those type of things I think really stand out to me is probably the team and the team members, and from that what we're able to provide to our internal team and our
so
team
it's
members.
Interesting because what you're doing is what is often talked about in the industry is becoming more resilient for the future. You have more flexibility. When you change systems, you're not doing it because you go, oh, they got a really cool this or really cool that. It's so more than ever, so you're prepared for what you don't know.
It's true.
Because it's everything's changing so quickly. You don't know what the government's going to say. You don't know what the regulator's going to say. You don't know what your members are going to say that they want next, because they're being driven by things way outside financial institutions, and their experiences have to hit the level that their best human and digital experiences happen. As you said before the podcast, they expect us to know them and understand them, reward them based on the insights you're supposed to have. And I think one of the things that we see as being important but often missed, and you talked about it when you talked about the democratization, is being able to deploy against what you can do so that the member knows that you're giving them that special attention. So you aren't having people that start knocking on the doors of your digital competitors and trying to open an account at X, Y, or Z that is not within the bank, because we can't do a really good job of tracking loyalty anymore, because attrition is close to zero for everybody, because people just, it's a pain in the butt to close accounts. But to see flow of funds, to be able to know where else are they doing stuff, it's a big deal. When you talk, go ahead.
No, go. We do see that, right? So we see like the Venmos of the world, right? That's strong in our, because we see where money is moving, right? We see how people are outside of Mountain America, they're using their funds, and then so how can we use that data? How can we provide better tools, features, and service?
Either get them back or keep them from leaving in the first place.
Exactly.
You talked about personalization. We all in this industry talk about personalization.
Right.
When it comes to AI and data, we're applying it more in the back office for efficiency and automation and effectiveness.
Sure.
How is Mountain America, MACU, actually leveraging data and insights to build better experiences, and even more than that, better engagement on a personalized basis? Let's talk about what he mentioned, where Alex mentioned earlier, anticipatory banking.
That's right. So I think for us right now, it is starting in with member services and ensuring that we are using the data, providing tools. Once we can, our team members can be better, right? So as they're potentially listening to a phone call, they're servicing a member, we're cueing them on the screen, potentially like showing them maybe potentially the member's already asking, prompting them, showing them knowledge center, right, of maybe how to accomplish a task or to open a complicated IRA or a trust account or a new loan. And so providing the team members the ability to do that, so they're happier, they're efficient, they stay longer. Training's a lot easier, right? As you can imagine, starting with a financial organization and getting a phone call from a certificate or a balance or a transfer or a mortgage loan, right? The complexity is great. And so, but with agent assist tools, with AI, and those type of things, we provide that. And then next is leveraging that to our members through either conversational banking, virtual assistants. We do have a great IVA where members can call up and self-serve through their voice, through phone system. We authenticate that way. We can anticipate some of those things there. We've done great things around offers with Visa cards and rates and balance transfers and fees and some different things where we can anticipate really where to help serve and help our membership. Probably some of the biggest areas, but we're just in the early beginnings of potentially where the combination of data, AI, and this compute power that's coming, and risk, and you're right, and fraudsters and bad actors are right there with us, right, taking advantage of the technology as well. So it's it's
It's a balancing act.
it's a huge balancing act, and we have to keep the trust of our members, right? We security is top of mind, obviously for us, and making sure that's there, number one.
So Jesse, from the back office perspective, what's your biggest challenge you're trying to address today?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it here already a little bit, but just understanding how the changes we're making, either by bringing in new vendors, new products, or changes to our systems, how that impacts the overall experience of our members, and being able to, properly measure those impacts. Just that observability piece, I think, continues to be a challenge. We continue to mature in that space, but we've got to understand how any change we make, even if it's a seemingly innocent change on the back end, that can have implications that we don't always see, right? And we have issues sometimes, but minimizing those impact and getting a better handle on how all of these changes affect each other, how they all interact, and making sure we're staying ahead of that, so we know about those changes, preferably before we were pushing those to our production environments, but certainly before our members are notifying us, and maintaining that experience that our members expect from us.
We talk about observability, and you continually upgrade your services, the way you're communicating, the way maybe the mobile app or online app looks, how the brand's experience feels. How do you measure the members' reaction to what you do? How do you measure the observability?
We do a lot of surveys, right? So we get feedback from our members that way, which we review monthly, go through some of those feedback. We get great feedback. We get opportunities to improve, right? With those things. We also have various tools to see performance of the application. How performant is it? How quick are they logging in? How long is it taking to log in? How long is it taking a transfer to sync? And those milliseconds and seconds matter to our members. Again, when they're quickly checking a balance, and how long does that take to load up, and how long does it take to complete that transfer? We do a lot of studies as well. I mentioned our UX team, which has been a great benefit to us. So we have some researchers that'll go out and not only help pick new products and different things, but also go out and talk to members, right? And when we talk to members, we talk to our frontline team members, and we take all of that feedback, bring it back in, and really adjust, tweak, and innovate on our product to do that. We've really found recently too, as we've been reaching out to members we traditionally use like emails, right, to communicate, sometimes like some text options, but really within online and mobile, we built some recent widgets to reach out to members and also collect information from them that we've usually tried phone calls or emails. Are very difficult to do that, but that's one of the areas kind of subtly that we've been able to use as a channel to communicate with members, not just to push potentially a product or to advertise, but to validate and get some information from them to service their account better.
It's interesting because it gets back to the culture.
For sure.
The whole mentality of what you're doing is not new to your organization.
Not at all.
But it supports everything else. So as we wrap this up, Jesse, from your perspective, what excites you about